Suit up, strap in, warm the tires, and leave on yellow. Time for the MitsuTimes podcast, presented by MitsuTimes.org, the home of the fastest Mitsubishi cars. With your host, Josh.
What's going on, guys? It's Josh from MitsuTimes. Today, our guest is Andrew Welling, the owner and driver of the white 1G. I'm sure you've seen probably on social media or at least at the shootout. How's it going, Andrew? How are you?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good.
Good stuff. I'm glad to finally have you on. I really enjoyed the grudge racing between you and your buddy last year with the Supra. That was a good time.
Yeah, man, that was a lot of fun. I wish more people would have put up a little bit and called some people out. But Chris and I had a lot of fun, and I think we put on a good show for everybody too.
Definitely, yeah. It was a good show, that's for sure. So tell us about your 1G as it sits right now. What's the setup like?
The setup? Pieces. No, it's a 93 Talon, all-wheel drive auto car. Caged tin can. Skilled in at a little over 2,800 pounds race weight when we were at the shootout. I'm 280 of that suited up, so the car's pretty light. Pretty much full on race car, right? But you can still head over to Cars and Coffee on a Saturday morning with it. So, 2-liter 6-bolt block, Weisco HD pistons, BME aluminum rods, still on factory crank. I got the Force Engineering's nasty 1G head, he likes to call it. Piglet springs, Kelfer 272s. I've got a forward-facing exhaust manifold, Mitsu flanged. It's the old school FP black, HTA compressor wheel instead of the newer HCZ wheels that they offer now. Custom 3-inch side exit exhaust, Shearer Fab air water intercooler. That's a custom setup we did. Still on a non-turbo throttle body, 1G throttle body. JMF race intake manifold, MagnaFuel mechanical pump. It's a 7 GPM. Using Darren's bracket setup, the FFWD fuel pump bracket. Running 8 2150s from FIC. It is a methanol car. Running LS3 coils on it, so not the ITN1As, but just basically a standard GM truck coil. I am on the Elite 550 from Haltech, controlling the engine and soon the trans. It is a 2G auto with Kigley 6-volt adapter kit. Custom installed precision converter. Let's see, built the trans myself. It's basically a TransTech rebuild kit. It's got a Kigley 5-pack front clutch, welded center diff, my custom shift kit. But it is still stock TKs, drive shaft, rear end, axles, even brakes. I do have the VW vacuum pump and a 1.8-liter master cylinder in it, as well as 4-wheel line lock. K-Sport control, the coilovers. It does have custom-made rear springs, but the factory suspension still overall, so control arms, subframes. It does have Volk front cross member, and I use the 26 by 9.5 Hoosier QTPs on it now. So it's pretty deeply invested, drag setup, but the car's working. So
yeah, the car definitely puts out the jam, that's for sure. I also forgot to mention, I wanted to say in the intro, the reigning Basure Poker Run champion.
Yes. I won twice actually. Yeah, I won last year, and then I also won the very first one that he did a few years back. So
well versed in the Basure Poker Run. So, what made you choose the 1G platform in the first place?
I've had a handful of DSMs over the years. I haven't really been without one since 2005. They've always been what I'd call an exception to the rules of racing. Kind of flipped the performance scene on its head. In the early 90s when they ran side by side with Fox bodies, and with fairly minimal effort, you could really outrun them. So that separation of the norm kind of suits me. and I think we can all agree that the 4G engines, right, are just so raw and impressive for being a four-cylinder that, it just makes sense, right, for a driver's car. So drag racing, road racing, whatever. But this particular car, being all-wheel drive, it was the perfect base for what I wanted to do, which was, drag racing, trying to be competitive at the import level, but even maybe hurt some feelings at the domestic level, right? Even if all-wheel drive can't play a small tire. That's my insert jab moment for the night.
All right, so what was this car like when you first picked it up?
Oh, buddy. A little bit of history here. So I actually got the car in 2015. A lot of people probably know Tyler Hassing up at Fourth Engineering.
Yep.
And he decided that his, I'll say, direct support for the DSM platforms was going to shift, kind of make way for Coyote development. So he decided that it was time to part ways with his shop car. And at the time, it was the bolt-on turbo record holder. Tyler went, 932 at 149-ish. So some of you probably remember that. It was 2013 to 2015 time frame. There's a few years there where Tyler was really tearing things up. He kind of started off with that forward-facing 16G methanol build, and then progressively went larger with the turbo, and I think he went mid to low 10s maybe on 16G, and cracked into the 9s with like a hybrid turbo, like a F3 S8 setup, and then ultimately went to the black. But he was, kind of shifting things around. He sold the engine and the trans and the turbo and ECU and basically everything except the rolling chassis, right, with rear end and some boxes of miscellaneous parts. So during that same time, I was kind of transitioning my old 1G, which was a 16G angle trans build, to an FP Black. So I was consulting with Tyler a lot and trying to learn as I was building up this quote-unquote big turbo setup. And on the 16G, my old black car, we went 1178 at 115. And when I did the FP Black swap, we really struggled with it, trying to get the car set up right and making power, making power over RPM. And it really only got it down to basically like 11.7, 11.72, 124, and threw the car out a couple times, and we just couldn't seem to get things sorted out. And it was clear that the whole thing just wasn't working together. I mean, the head, the exhaust setup, the trans, the power band was so tiny. It was like 1,200 RPM power band, where it just fell on its face. So I'd already been contemplating switching to auto after just repeated menial trims and drivetrain repairs, and we were cutting some high 1.660s, low 1.7s, pass after pass after pass, and after getting the FP Black build going on that card and then not performing the way we wanted it to, I decided that it was maybe the right thing to jump on this chassis from Tyler and kind of start fresh, so to speak. So, the car already had a bunch of suspension improvements over what I had. It was already caged, parachute, had the line lock, all these items that if I would have tried to convert my car, my old 1G over, I would have had so much time and money, into that chassis and trying to get it, up to snuff. And by this point, it was getting pretty cancerous. It's been an Indiana car its whole life, and salt isn't too nice on those 90s cars. So, really questioned whether the body was really even salvageable. And I said, starting this build, this new chassis, just kind of made sense. So, fall of 15, I drove up to Southwest Michigan there and basically bought everything Tyler had, left in his garage, and brought the roller home and started that process of transitioning from the old car to this new one. So.
And back when Tyler had it, he was still stock frame turbo as well, right? Like you?
Yeah, so when he finally kind of retired the setup, he was on the FP Black. He originally was on an FP manifold, and then he switched back to the forward-facing setup, and that is what he set the record with.
Okay. I knew it was something he was pushing the stock frame or something like that.
Yeah, like I said, he started with the 16G setup, and like I said, it was at least mid-tens, if not a little bit lower, and then eventually got to the Black and went the 932 pass.
So besides the FP Black that you have in it now, have you had any different setups in it?
I mean, the setups haven't changed much if you look at it from a turbo perspective, but I'll say everything kind of around it has been kind of looked at or reconsidered, I'll say. So, since I first built it up, there's definitely been my fair share of battles and setbacks. We got that car, like I said, late 2015. It took a good bit to get the car together. It was, I went back and looked, I was going back through some old Facebook posts, and it's like, man, it was May of 2018 before I actually got the car, running and driving. And that setup was a non-intercooled with that FP Black, my FP Black from my old car. It was running 42150s. It was a Magna Fuel 4301, like those electric gear pump setup.
Yeah.
The engine was basically the same engine out of my black car, but I kind of went through it and tried to beef it up a little bit for the power. So I had it kind of machined up locally, and I rebuilt it to try to support, hopefully making some more numbers out of it, And that setup ended up as a steam engine after about 7 minutes or so on the dyno. We didn't even get to make a power pull, and it just started pushing water. And this was the first time we tried doing like an O-ring copper head gasket setup.
Yeah.
And we found out after the fact that who I had do the machine work had some issues with the ring grooves and receiving grooves, and they weren't concentric. So basically, when everything bolted up, the O-rings were actually cutting the copper gasket on the edge of the receiving groove, so it never truly sealed. So obviously, water flows in, flows out of the head right into the cylinder, and there she blew. So, and this was after I'd spent a bunch of time battling wiring issues because I tried to integrate that Elite 550 ECU because I had an AEM EMS in the old black car, a V1 setup, and I had that for many years, and it was a strong setup, but I was really feeling Haltech at the time, back in, like I said, 2015, 2016, they were really starting to make waves, and I was jumping on the product, and I was like, well, I'll just integrate it into the factory harness of the car that I had, and that just, it didn't go well. Trying to chase down some of the internal groundwork of the harnessing, there was a lot of backfeeding of voltage that was happening, and ultimately I had to really step back and end up picking up the flying lead harness that Haltech sells, and completely rewired the engine from scratch. So between that and the engine issues, it was a little heartbreaking. You know what I mean? You had over 2.5 years kind of get this thing going, and it just kind of fell flat on its face. So after that, I went ahead and worked with Tyler and said, you're going to be my machining guy from now on. So the next build, he did all the machining work on the engine, and in July of 19, we got it running again. Got it up on the dyno, and we ran out of fuel at, it was like 480 or something like that. And that was at wastegate spring pressure, basically 24 pounds on the methanol. But it was like, all right, the car's running, let's go ahead and let's get to the track and let's just see what it does, right? We need to learn something, we need to get seat time. So finally got a 10-second pass, which is all I wanted on my old black car, but we just couldn't get it there. And went 10:51 at 133, so that was actually at the shootout in the 10.5 index class. So we took number one qualifier with the car, but still fighting some issues of pushing through the brakes. So the 60 foots were terrible, and I knew the car had some more ET in it if I could just get it to hold on the line. So ultimately we lost first round at the shootout on a red light, and then after that, I downed the car, and I was like, all right, we're going to try to address some of these issues. So, added injectors, went to the mechanical pump, added an intercooler because the intake air temps were still just getting way out of control, to the point that the EMI AC sensor was about to melt. So it was hot, and that was that intercooler setup that we put on was a frozen boost core that I modified the end tanks on to kind of shoehorn it into the engine bay.
Yeah.
With that turbo being forward facing, and it's got a horizontal radiator setup, it's great for some of the space, in the engine bay, and weight distribution, but the build was just, the build was not friendly for an intercooler. So, like I said, basically the setup is like on top of the trans, the intercooler. It was kind of the only area I had that I could fit something of any substantial size. So we got that all done up. Got the car back up to Tyler. Obviously COVID hit, shortly after that, and that slowed everything down. But we were able to work through it. And June of last year, June of 21, we got the car back together, back on the dyno, and shook out about 540 horse at 32 pounds, which was great, right? We started seeing some of the gains that we wanted to see, but we found a flow restriction at that point. It was just basically it fell off after 32 pounds. It wouldn't make any more power. So I addressed the brake push issue. Ended up getting the car done up with second gear stall up, and after that, with that setup, even with the flow restriction, getting the car to hold on the line. We finally got that first 9-second pass shortly after that. So we went out, went out in June to a no prep, blew the coupler up on the intercooler first pass, took the car back out a couple weeks later at a mass traction event down at Muncie, and that's where we got 3 9-second passes right off the trailer. So went to best of 963 at 140, and it was actually a really nice day. It was 1,100 foot DA, and that was the same 32 pounds that we were doing on the dyno. So it was pretty crazy. I mean, it was like a rocket ship. It was a 132 60 foot. I mean, the car was moving out. So I was actually recording pressure drop on the intercooler on those passes, and we found out that it was getting like 5, upwards of 8 psi pressure drop across that intercooler.
Okay.
So so we were getting 32 pounds in the manifold, but the turbo was measuring anywhere from 37 to 40 plus. And if I tried to crank it up any more, in the manifold, the turbo just exponentially was higher boost. So we knew that it was pretty bad. So I decided, you know what? We got a little bit of time. Let's see what we can do. So kind of in a rush for the shootout, got a hold of Ron Shearer, and was like, all right, here's my dilemma. Here's my packaging. This is not friendly by any means, but what do you think? And we worked together and come up with an intercooler setup that really fit the bill, and got that all set up. It's a Garrett 1,000 horsepower liquid core, all custom tanks, mounting with, like I said, the help around there. And once we got that setup done, made a handful of passes to prove it out and tweak the tune, and we only ended up getting about a half a PSI or less pressure drop at that same 32 pounds of boost in the manifold. And with that, we were running 972 at 140, and that was with 142.60s. We were slipping the tires. This was at the shootout actually last year. So the car was making the mile an hour. The short track was a little rough, just trying to hook, but it was also 3,500 foot DA. So same boost, same mile an hour, but a vast difference in DA. We definitely knew that the improvements were there. So we were finding some issues with the water flow in the intercooler and the pump, the Cobra pump that I use, not being able to keep up. So that's, again, you keep finding the next thing, right?
Right.
But you mentioned the grudge race, right, at the shootout with Chris and his Mark III Supra, and that was such a good time. The build up, it was it was cool to be out there and put on the show. And what sucks is we had a little issue with nitrous on the launch. So I have a nitrous outlet dry kit that I use to spool the converter. Unfortunately, there was a little bit of this programming issue, I'll say, on my end, where we basically used the nitrous to spool the converter, but launch control is also active. But in that race, I left before the nitrous shut off. So when launch control deactivated, and the fuel ad was no longer there. The timing retard was no longer there, and it was just the nitrous compensation. It went really lean, really fast, and ultimately we basically hurt the motor right off the line on that pass. And that's what's down the car now. So that's what I've still been working through, this off season. But yeah, like I said, the turbos remain the same, the rollers remain the same, but we've done a lot of work on the setup trying to find what is working best right around this combo and what is it really like. So,
was it this setup that broke you into the nines? I mean, obviously the car has gone faster with Tyler and his setup, but when you've been running pretty consistent mid nines, is it with this setup or was it a different setup that broke you into the nines?
So the first 9-second pass was actually with the frozen boost intercooler on it.
Okay.
So honestly, when I go back and look at the data, back in 2019 when we were running the non-intercooled setup, if I would have realized, the quick fix of getting the car to stay on the line at that point in time, it probably could have been real close to a 9 on that setup. It would have been real low 10s. But, it was something I'd never even heard about. I didn't really hear many people talking about it, and now it's a little more common knowledge. But so the second year stall really helped because, the car's on factory 1GB brakes. It's got the bigger or the 1.8 liter master cylinder and the vacuum pump, and the car makes enough torque on the line that I couldn't hold it back. My foot's through the firewall and it wasn't enough. So, like I said, we put that intercooler in there to address the temp issue and got the second gear stall up working, and that's finally what got us into the 9s. So I was hoping to go deeper in the 9s when we switched the intercooler out, but we weren't able to get enough time and passes in before we hurt the motor and kind of ended things early. So,
I think it's so incredible what the stock frame turbo, a lot of people just jump straight to HX35, or at least they used to back in the day, or, nowadays they probably jump to a 6262 or what have you. It's so amazing to me what the stock frame turbo can push, especially the FP, the black, the zero, the red, the green. It's amazing.
Yeah. Really, it's the turbo is there. You know what I mean? You gotta find out what around it is what makes it happy.
Yeah.
And the same could be said for the bigger stuff too, right? If you're into a GT35 or a whole set used to be, those used to be real common there for a while, or a PTE or whatever. You got to figure out what the combo likes. Trying to match head porting and cams and manifolds. Tyler had some pretty good experience, between the FP manifold when he was running the black versus the forward-facing setup. Because obviously with the FP black, it's a pretty good size compressor, but that there's some choking on that turbine side that you really gotta address. So you lengthen that runner length, right, from the head to the turbine. You can really get a lot more out of the turbo that way. So if you go through the list that you got, Josh, it's pretty crazy looking at what some of the bolt-on cars have done.
Definitely.
Over the past few years.
I remember when the FP68 HTA was the go-to, and now with the FP0, and it's crazy how far we've come and how far the stock turbo frame has really. I wonder if the FP0 is it. It's amazing.
Right. I mean, I think it probably will be. Like I said, I mean, there's a lot of restrictions you're going to start finding on the turbine side.
Yeah,
so.
definitely. So if you could start over and do this build all over again, you think you would do it exactly the same?
Oh man, that's a slippery slope. On one hand, I probably would have dived deeper into my fuel calculations early on, and I would have known that the setup was kind of insufficient for meth. I probably would have done the Haltech setup a little more direct, and skipped the whole factory harness deal and just kind of went right into wiring it from scratch. The intercooler was another one where it was like, I was, having good results, taking that restriction out of the system. But, it's through all those experiences that, I learned what and how some combos do and don't work. You know what I mean? So it really strengthened my understanding of getting the car to run, making power, getting it down the track. So, is the learning more valuable than the time and money lost? Maybe. Who knows?
So I know that, you can't really have a race car and race it without some issues. But with the issues that you were talking about, with the intercooler issues, the forward-facing issues with, having intercool at the same time, what motivates you to keep going with this car?
Well, I just want to go fast.
Don't we all?
No, seriously. I mean, it's hard to describe the feeling of cutting a 1/360, you know what I mean, and trapping 140 plus mile an hour. Like you can't describe that to somebody until they feel it, and then they know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So I mean, I've got a pretty strong love for drag racing and growing into the car. It feels like an extension of you. So even when the car sits, whether it's broken or busy with life or whatever, right? There's always like this little gut check, you know what I mean? You walk into the garage and you look at the car and you're like, God, I want to send it again. I really want to get in there and just launch, you know what I mean? So, we've got a pretty strong local group, Club Diamond Star. That definitely plays a role in it too. I mean, we help each other out and, always trying to push. So even if it's not for a faster slip, you know what I mean? Drive, race, have fun.
So do you have any goals for 2022 with this car? I'm sure at this point it's just to get it back together, but is there anything that you want to accomplish?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like you said, it is in pieces right now. We're working through the new engine after we heard it, and there's some incremental changes to the car to make it a little bit more stageable and get the shifting more consistent. So I would like to try to find the extent of the turbo, at least in the setup as it is. Like I said, I'm looking into possibly changing out the turbine housing and changing the water pump for the intercooler. Really could use a Davies Craig pump in there to have enough flow to move all that water. I'm working on getting the Elite 550 to shift the trans. So right now it's ratchet shifting, just manually going through the gears.
Yeah.
But that's going to be kind of fun because the 550 doesn't have true outputs. Like with a 2500, you'd use a drive-by-wire output, for instance, to run the trans solenoids because of the amperage. 550 doesn't have high enough amperage outputs to do it. So basically, we're using some solid-state relays on a little mini board that the generic outputs can trigger, and then shift the trans still with ECU, but have it basically relay in between. So I'd like to get that done. Again, it's going to help make the car more consistent. So unfortunately, supply chain issues are a mess, right? So getting parts, especially pistons, has been a little bit of a struggle.
Right.
There's still a chance that we can get things done, this summer, and hopefully get the car back together and at least get on the track before the season's out. It'd be great if we can make it to the shootout with it. But I'd like to find the true limits of the turbo. I'll say it's tough. So I'd like to clear, Tyler's old personal best this year if I get the car together. I think that'd be pretty achievable, goal. Try to get to that 932 mark with this setup. If we can't get the car together this year, it'll definitely be an off the trailer goal right next spring. So.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember how far you have to go. He's got a 932, so yeah.
Yeah, I was at 963, so we got about 0.3 to Tyler's old record at least. If you kind of back at the stock frame turbo list, Noonan just obliterated that record.
Oh yeah.
A couple years ago, right? Adriana went. Gosh, he went 889 with no spray, 867 with spray, which was kind of dream crushing. You know what I mean? When I got the car from Tyler, it was like, hey, this is going to be a 950 index car, right? That's kind of what I want to do. I want to go to the local track. I want to go to Muncie, try to compete, maybe go to some IFO events and try to get this car, competitive, even at some heads-up levels. I had this FP Black. It seems to be like we can make it do it and not be too crazy. So it's like, if we're going to run 950s, then I'm just going to have to break your record, buddy. I'm sorry. That's how it's going to have to happen, But it was kind of a joke, right? But like I said, in the back of my mind, I was like, everything Tyler experienced and he learned working with him, I think we can take a stab at his old record and still get the car where I want it to be for what I'm doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
But like I said, when Noonan went 8s, man, it was pretty crazy. I know my jaw dropped. I was like, wow, that is not what I expected.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you talk to Tyler, he thought he could have got one out of the car. He was battling some fueling issues before he decided to, retire it. He probably could have got it if he could have got that sorted out, but, Robert Young's commitment to power definitely shows when you take a bolt-on turbo and go at 8-second pass with it.
Oh, for sure, yeah. I mean, I think we all, all like you said, our jaws hit the floor like, whoa. Yeah, when her and Tom pulled off the 2 8s, man, I don't know. I don't know if this is a record that's going to be broken anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, long term for the car, I want to try to push the Black to click off, even if it's an 899, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, for sure.
I just want to show that maybe another car can do it. I know there's been people that have tried and, I don't want to say failed, but, tried and just didn't quite get there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, there's cars with zeros that haven't even broken to the H yet. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah.
There's more compressor.
I mean, you got even Chris Young's, he's pushed FP Red to 9.2. So, people out there, they're getting it done.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. It'll be, interesting to see. Like I said, I built the car more as a, mid to low 9s consistent. I wanted to go rounds, and have some fun. You know what I mean? But at the same time, it's like in the back of your mind, you go, I really do kind of want that little slip. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So, well, we'll see if we get, like I said, get some of this other stuff sorted out. I don't see why we can't push, on Tyler's dyno. So we make 540 at 32 pounds. I think we could crack that 600 mark on his dyno. At maybe close to 40 pounds a boost. The car has spray in it, so we could set up spray and see if we can't push it a little bit even harder. So I think the recipe is there, especially with this new intercooler. Get the Haltech control in the trans. Get our intake air temps really where we want them. And I think the car will. I think it'll do it. We just got to get the right, the right track and the right weather.
Just need everything to come together.
Put it all together.
Yeah. That's how it goes, right? Hopefully with the shootout being a little bit later in the year, track temps will be cooler and a lot of people will be able to knock out some PBs out there.
Yeah. I mean, it'll definitely be interesting to see, Friday night or or Saturday, morning, evening, whatever, there could definitely be some low DAs that definitely let people take a chance to swing for the fences.
Yeah, for sure. I know. I can't imagine you in the fire suit, but I was miserable last year. It was so hot.
Yeah, it was pretty drippy.
All right. So do you have any? We kind of already talked about it, but do you have any long-term power or quarter-mile goals? Is it just the 899, or what kind of long-term goals you got?
Yeah, on the black, for sure. Like I said, I would love to crack that 8-second barrier just to be, not the first one to do it, but I'll take second one. That'd be good for me, But there's definitely I'll say ideas rolling around of what's the next thing. You know what I mean? Yeah, not near term by any means, but maybe 5+ years down the road, do we finally make the jump to something a little bit bigger and try to get the car to more like a mid 8-second competitive car? I don't know. For the foreseeable future, over the next couple seasons at least, definitely want to make the car that, like I said, 950 competitive, and see if we can't go rounds and maybe actually get some trophies out of it.
Definitely.
So I enjoy the racing. I enjoy the sport. You know what I mean? Chasing records is, it's tough. You know what I mean? To try to pioneer it, to try to, get it all to come together and do it in a manner that, obviously you can't be the second, third one to do it because it's not the record, right? It's like the first one is the first one, and it'll always be that way. So
it's a good way to spend a lot of money.
Exactly. And I'm definitely not budgeted for that by any means.
Yeah.
This episode of the MitsuTimes podcast is brought to you by Morrison Fabrication. They have over 25 years of combined experience in the DSM and Evo platforms: welding, fabrication, engine building, and drag racing. Their shared high level of expectation for quality, meticulousness, reliability, and efficiency, the performance and function of each piece, and consistency of fitment allows them to create true works of art that perform as well as they look. They have gained considerable knowledge and expertise over the years and are committed to the pursuit of continuous learning for unrelenting progress and advancements within and for our community. Find out more about their products at morrisonfabrications.com.
So we just got your black car added to the list. Obviously, this isn't your first Mitsubishi or Mitsubishi powered car. Is there any other ones that you want to talk about, or you want to talk about that black one?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, it's definitely not my first. Let's see, I bought my first one in 05. That was a 91 GST, and it was beat up. At the time it was only a 14-year-old car, but it definitely had some love on it. But that I was so impressed with that car and the styling, and it was substantially faster than my 90 Prelude that I had at the time, or even my dad's old 74 small block Nova, right? So, and sure, I know you're rolling your eyes, Josh, right now. You're like, Honda. No, I'm just kidding. I did have one of the Ford stuff at first, and then I picked up a Prelude because it was different. I thought it was kind of cool to try to build something different, but ultimately, when I found that GST, I was like, man, this is definitely me. So I daily drove that car for 3 years, and as you can imagine, it taught me about every factory DSM problem in existence, and usually at the most inopportune time. But I started to realize there's definitely some limitations to front wheel drive, and obviously this was back in high school, and we were all racing around, and it was pretty clear, right? It's not a drag car by any means. So I liked DSM, and I wanted to get something that was a little more fun to race. So I started to hunt for an all-wheel drive car, and it was, November of 07. I think it was November, is when I picked up my 91 Talon, that black car. So that was really the first car that I really built and raced. So I had an engine that I'd already started building for the front-wheel drive, but like I said, I was like, the platform isn't going to be great for drag racing. You know what I mean? And at the time, Kickley was like the only person that was doing big things with front-wheel drive, and well, I guess Joe was too at the time. But I had that car, the black 1G all-wheel drive, from 2007 until 2016. So
wow,
we had that car for a long time. It was, for most of that, it was a 16G car. So that thing was the quintessential fundamental build. It was a Wiseco piston, eagle rod. It started off as stock cam, and then it went to some Brian Crowder cams. It was always on stock intake manifold, 2G exhaust manifold, punishment intercooler. I did all the drivetrain work in that car. That was the first time I dove into transmission building and realized that it's not as scary as it seems. So I bought all my parts from John Ripple and built my trans up, and eventually gutted the car and put it on slicks, and it was only a 16G car, but we were out there running high 11s all day long. So beat up a lot of people at the local track with it for sure. So but yeah, then we also had in 2009 picked up a 4th gen clutch from my wife, and we loved that car. So it was a GT. It was a 6G75 with a 16. And it was a blast to drive. I mean, people bash on 3Gs and 4Gs, but it was, if you hop in that car and you go for a drive, it was fun. I mean, it was just a fun car. So she let me take it to the track on a Wednesday night down to Muncie. We went 14.6 fully stock trim. Had some terrible necks and tires on it. But yeah, that was a great car, and cheap. So she dailied that.
A great. If you don't have to come from a dig because they're so heavy, but that 6G75 really likes to rev.
It does. I was really impressed with that car. I mean, like I said, at that point in time, in 2009, 4-Gen had only been out for a couple years, and it was not getting any love from the DSM community, right? That's for sure. And even the 3G community was, I think, even kind of raising an eyebrow, going, I don't know about that thing, because it was such a, the styling cues were way different, but yeah, that was cool. I picked up a 92 GSX in 2010, but that really turned into a parts car. So I got it from a friend who was leaving for boot camp, and it was in pretty rough shape, but it had some good parts on it. So I took it from before he took off, and he's like, this really is just going to be, going to help the talent get a little bit better. You know what I mean? So they had a 4-bolt rear end and stuff like that. So really, I kind of took what I needed off that car, sold as much as I could, and we ended up having to toss the body out because it was getting pretty rotted.
You always need a good parts car.
Surprisingly, I had as many as you'd think. I usually was able to find, what I needed from somebody that already had a parts car or whatever. You know what I mean? I wasn't necessarily in the business to pick up parts cars all the time if I didn't have to. You didn't really have the space for it. So made do as best I could. But see, after we had our first kid, my wife's 4th gen was getting a little tough to pull an infant seat out of. So as you can imagine, so we ended up trading that in for an Outlander Sport, right? So I had the 4B11 in it, and that thing is actually, again, surprisingly fun for what it is.
Yeah.
So I mean, she had that car for 8 years. We put 240,000 miles on it.
Wow.
She was her daily commuter. It was our road trip trooper. We'd load up and take that thing out. It was great in the snow. It still had the super all-wheel control set up, so you could select, your mode, and just go rip around in the snow. We get a good snowfall here in northern Indiana, and you put that thing in the lock T-case mode and just go rip around. It was a good time. Again, it's funny because it's like nobody look at Outlander Sport and go, oh, wow, what a fun car. And you're like, oh, man, this thing's actually pretty cool. So, got to give Mitsubishi props. They still had the fun underneath it. We just didn't get to see it in the body. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
So,
Yeah, we bought a Outlander Sport brand new in 2015, and man, it was. I mean, it got great gas mileage, and it was pretty fun to rip around in.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely took a beating.
Yeah, and then let's see, it was December of 2013. I finally pulled the trigger on an Evo. I mean, I'd always been eyeballing them, and just always wanted one. You know what I mean? Again,
Yeah.
I was always a Mitsubishi guy. You know what I mean? I kind of got that title pretty quickly, and I was like, well, I got to get an Evo here at some point, even just to have, hang on to. So I found one for a steal. It was a great car for the street, for autocross. It was stock block, stock turbo, mild clutch, some mild fuel upgrades. It was made about, we made 350 horse on Wayland's dyno. We went to a dyno day up there. It was like 2015, maybe something like that. And we strapped it down, and it's like, it's not too bad. Stock turbo making 350 on ethanol. It's clean and low mileage, all the creature comforts. So it's like power steering, AC, power windows. What a way to drive. The old Black Talon was an aluminum seat and converted to manual windows and manual rack, and did everything I could to take weight out of that car. And I was like, man, this is kind of cool to have something that's fairly quick and super fun to drive and actually feel like it's a car.
Right. Yeah.
So, but I've had that car on the drag strip. Done very little bit of autocross with it. I'd like to do more, but it always seems the local stuff always seems to fall on days that we have stuff going on. It's like, I just want to go out and run a couple times. But gosh, I've gotten that. I drove that down to 1242 at 114. So,
wow.
Done some index racing with it actually in Muncie at the old. At the time, it was the Heads Up series that Team 260 was putting on. I don't know if you remember that at all, Josh, but they had a 12.5 index class, a pretty packed class, and we would go rounds down there with that car, just going tooling around, having fun. You know what I mean?
That's awesome.
Yeah. Like I said, it's basically a stock car. I mean, at the end of the day, so so still have that one. Actually, I still got the Evo. And then, like I said, in 2015, I picked up the White Talon, and ultimately we had to send the Talon off to its grave in 2016, the old black one. So, but all in all, had a small range of Mitsus. Still got the two, but there's some that I would like to have. You know what I mean? I've always wanted a 3SI. It's kind of a guilty pleasure car.
Yeah, definitely.
Had an older cousin back in, it was 99. He had an RTTT, and I was just blown away. You know what I mean? I was 11 years old. Like, this is the coolest thing on the planet,
I've owned a couple, but never the turbo ones.
Yeah. I mean, it was just like, how could something this crazy come out of Japan? You know what I mean? Like,
for sure.
I grew up with a domestic household, so it was like that was like taboo, like, oh man, those foreign cars can't do anything. What are you talking about? But it's like you write in that, and you're like, what is this monster? So, yeah, I've never owned a 2G, mainly because I don't fit. I'm kind of a big man, SpongeBob. So, I sat in them, I checked them out. I've always liked the styling cues, and obviously with my age, I grew up in the Fast and Furious time frame, and everybody remembers the hero car, but again, I sat in it, I was like, ooh, this is not for me. I definitely fit in a 1G way more comfortably. But yeah, I was never much of a 3G fan, never really got into them. I had some friends with them, and I understand why people loved them. They definitely could be fun to drive, you know what I mean? A good manual trans GT car is a pretty good setup. But I'll tell you, Josh, I've been eyeballing some stuff here lately that I'm going to call my retirement build. I've really been kind of keen on these early 70s Colt Galant GTOs. Have you seen those?
Oh, man, love those.
Oh, I don't know what it is about the car. I just see I see some of these ones that are being restored, and people are doing some modern parts and put some amenities in them, and I'm just looking at it like, yeah, we're gonna snag one of those up one day. Just hang on to it. And I mean, it's just gonna be the the Grandpa Sunday show car, you know.
Man, there was one I seen many years back. It had the 4G63 in it. I mean, it wasn't. I think it was just a 16G or something, and just a 5G or a 5-speed trans from Mighty Max, and I mean, it was just so perfect. I've wanted one ever since.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I even ventured out to join some Facebook groups just to kind of see like how many of these things are even in existence. You know.
Yeah, for sure.
Newsflash, not many.
Yeah. And the ones that are out there, they're just full of rust.
Yeah, they're rough. They are rough. And if there is a clean one, it ain't cheap. That's for sure.
Definitely. They're starting to get the muscle car prices now.
Yeah, they are. I saw one. It wasn't for somebody who just picked one up, but it was over in, New Zealand maybe or something like that. And they spent it was like $33,000 on this car, and it still needed a lot of love. It was not, it was not ready for glitz and glamour. That's for sure.
Wasn't car show ready.
Definitely not.
So Andrew, if somebody out there, they have a 1G, they want to go fast. I think we've talked about this before. I know I keep talking about it. The 1G list is without a doubt the hardest to break into the top 10, top 15, top 20. I mean, when you're looking at all 7-second cars except for 2 or 3 on the top 10, that's a pretty high hurdle to jump over. Yeah, someone out there is listening to a 1G, they want to go fast. What advice would you give them from all the experience you've gained over these years?
It's for me. I think the one-liner is set a goal, right? You can't get discouraged and toss in a towel. I mean, I say this knowing that I have been discouraged and I have been ready to give up on more than one occasion. But when you think of the satisfaction, right, and the end result, you got to let that drive you. Like we talked about motivation earlier, you got to find what's going to drive you. So I have found that it really helps to work with someone who has done things and succeeded, right, and leverage their experience. I chat with Tyler quite often, and we bounce ideas or think about, hey, what do we know right now, or what have we learned, right? And how can we try to get to that goal? So some can be short term and some can be long term, and I think you have to have a good mix, in my opinion. So it took me 6 years to get a 9-second pass out of this car that really shouldn't have taken that long, but there's definitely lots of learning experiences both on the car and even the one before that helped shape it. So I was able to make those incremental improvements and pass some of those small milestones and little goals and really get crucial seat time. I mean, that's huge. You got to learn about the car. So I tell people all the time, especially in our local group, sometimes you just have to go out and drive what you have and enjoy it. I know that'll help you motivate. It'll motivate you, right, to work more towards those bigger goals. So I know some will say if you want an 8-second car, then go build an 8-second capable car. And I don't entirely disagree with that. I mean, you may spend less time and money going straight to the big goal, but I know that going from a 14-second pass back in 2007 to 13s to 12s, 11s, 10s, and now 9s, I definitely have an understanding and appreciation for what each of those milestones mean, and obviously polish the driver mod, continuing to drive a car down and down and down, you definitely start to learn a lot. So I know budget's king, right? And sometimes if you reel back to get the car on the road for a year or two while you save up for the upgrades of the next step, then to me that's fine. If your goal is to have a fast drag car, there's a lot of elements that you need to understand, and that's well outside engine or trans building. The suspension of the car and weight distribution, that plays such a big role on how that car can get down the track. So If you're thinking you want to do a quick street car or something of that nature, right? Then again, consult those who have done it, see what has and hasn't worked well, and at the end of the day, you try to do what you can to save yourself heartache. You know what I mean? As you march through your project. So to me, it's like I said, you got to set that goal, you got to set the vision, and there's going to be distractions, there's going to be setbacks, but yeah, like I said, I can go both ways when it comes to the going straight to a build versus learning your way through. But like I said, at the end of the day, if you set the goal and work towards it.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's great advice. I know we talked a little bit about shootout later on, but what events do you plan to attend this year that somebody could come out and see your car in action?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I'm probably not going to be able to do much, with the Talon. There's still that chance to get to the shootout since it got pushed. I'll personally be there regardless. But which car or cars and what's being raced is definitely up in the air. And I'll probably be doing some spectating here at some of the local streetcar and no prep stuff like Muncie Madness. I'm trying to hit up the Indy Airstrip attack too, just to go watch. Like I talked about the Evo, I've drag raced it in the past, but it is getting a little older and some of the aftermarket parts are showing their age, so I'm not too keen on beating it up too much, for some of the racing events. Trying to keep it more streetable, but we've got some locals who've gotten their cars to some much better positions. So, Cliff Diamond might be coming out pretty strong this year with, a couple cars that can go out and race. So I may just end up being more of a cheerleader and pit crew this year. But we'll see. We'll see if we get the car ready for the shootout. That definitely would be the target. And obviously, there's a lot of appreciative eyes there at the event. Sometimes there's some stuff locally in October where you get a little bit better air, and maybe we get the cars ready for the shootout, and maybe we continue on over those next couple of weeks and see if we can't do some Hail Marys for the end of the year. But that's kind of what it's shaping up like right now.
Okay. So I like to ask this at the end because, like we said, the 1G list is so difficult to get onto as far as the top 10. What do you think is the future of the top 10 list for the 1G?
Man, that's tough. We've seen some fast cars get, I guess I'll say, abandoned or at least put on hold. But there's also some faster 1Gs that are moving on or have moved on to some bigger setups. You know what I mean? So I know, Joe Gucci's no longer on that bolt-on turbo setup. He had a 0, and it sounds like he's doing a big boy turbo.
Yep. Just talked to him, but right before you, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know he's trying to, to move up with that car, and Aaron Gregory's now multitasking. It looks like with the 6-second chase, but also the drag and drive build as he bought Morrison's clunk box, right? So. There's a lot going on. I'm not sure who's going to prevail or make waves in the near term. I know been watching Jake Montgomery and his fair share of setbacks, and definitely feels pain. And I hope it doesn't deter him too much, from collecting all those IFO trophies. But I think there's going to be a shakeup, honestly, of that top 10 list. As some of the active cars that are in the lower spots. I was looking at that list the other day, and that 11 to 25 area, there's some setups in there that have done some improvements, and with some track time and the right combos, I think they may shake things up a little bit,
Definitely.
So I saw, Nathan Silver was out doing some testing in their 1G. So I don't know. We'll see. I think there's enough support and people stepping up to make parts for the cars that have a viable path, to succeed for at least a handful of years still, as long as the owners still have passion. So.
Right.
And I know that personally I've started working on some stuff. Got a shift kit that I've kind of put together. It really takes some of the stuff that Kevin Kigley has shared over the years and make it a little bit more attainable. A lot of it was stuff that you really had to fab on your own, and a lot of people have done it. But I'm like, it'd be easier to help everybody out and get some of these pieces available where you can just kind of drop it in and not have to do all the fab, So I've started working on trying to identify some common and wearable parts, too, that no longer are dealer offerings. You know what I mean? So we need people like that, right, to keep stepping up and trying to fill in these gaps so we can keep these cars going, keep them fast, and keep shaking up, what that list looks like, and keeping them relevant in racing in general.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Andrew, finally, is there anybody out there that you want to give a shout out to for, helping you get where you are, helping you do some wrenching?
Yeah, man. Yeah, for sure. I mean, hey, John, definitely my wife, Michelle. I mean, we've been together 16 years, and she's seen all the ups and downs and sideways and long ways and short ways and wrench tosses that have come with this addiction. I mean, hobby.
Feels like it
But,
sometimes.
she still gives me a kiss and a good luck before every pass, and even if she isn't physically at the track. So definitely huge thanks to her. But I got to give a shout out to all those who just directly and indirectly have helped me with the car and me and where this is today. So obviously Tyler Hastings at Force Engineering has been crucial in so many ways. I mean, technically, mentally, the car is still kind of an extension of him. I know he enjoys getting to work on it from time to time, bring it up to the dyno, and gets to see the car again and what I've been doing to it. So obviously huge shout out to Tyler and Josh Redden at Haltech. I mean, that guy has helped me out at some pinches and without hesitation. I mean, top notch customer service from them. And there's a reason I keep the giant stickers on the bumpers, because definitely, my top recommendation when it comes to controllers. So, important Kevin Kigley, he's really taught me the ins and outs of the auto train stuff and got me up to speed so quickly. It's made that part of my build and learning probably one of the least problematic areas of the car, which is a good thing. But the parts community is so strong and helpful. When you have questions, guys like Kevin, Robert Young at FP, Ron and Ty at Shearer Fab. I mean, they've helped me out whenever I have a question, you know what I mean? And they have your best interest in mind, right? They want to help you solve the problem. So, at least for me, the whole DSM community has been good to me. Always helped me learn and thrive. So whether it's DMs trying to help me sort out an issue or, looking at data trackside, even park sharing, get you to the next pass or home from the track, you know what I mean? So
Yeah,
definitely a huge shout out to the DSM community. I mean, I follow some other groups too, and there's a lot of toxicity out there, but I personally feel like we've built something in this community that seems to be unmatched in my opinion. But shout out to our local group, Club Diamond Star. Huge support system, even if you don't have a Mitsu. So we're all real close. We build each other up. We've got guys, Northern Indiana, Northwest Ohio. Some of the guys in the Michigan area, even guys down towards Indy. From the Anderson area. So we got a pretty good reach, and again, we're all trying to help each other out. So I mean, even in my garage, if I need help, I know that there's somebody that I can try to get a hold of and probably give me a hand. So Jared and Dave Griffiths and Jesse and Rick, Kyle, Chris, Pratt, Matt, the list goes on. But there's even a lot of non-Mitsu locals that have been helpful and also influential to my build and support. So drag week legend, I'll call him Chris Bashir. He's helped me out quite a bit with some work. Joe Haynes out at Higher Speed Shop. He's kind of our local, miscellaneous parts guy. You need an AN fitting in a pinch, hit up Joe. Nukin has been my TIG welding and small item machining go-to for stuff here. So, even those guys, right? They help. They help in so many ways, even if they don't even realize it. So it really does take a team to put on a fast car, to get it together, get it down the track. So, if I made a truly named list for everyone that's physically helped or taught me something, it'd be a scroll.
that's awesome, man. I'm so glad that so many people have your back. I'm sure, it would probably be an uphill battle without all those people. So that's great that people are out there still supporting the platform. And, For me personally, I love to see your updates because I'm a huge fan of the stock frame turbo. So yeah, I'm glad that you're still out there and still getting it.
Yeah, for sure, man. And I appreciate the time here, Josh, to tell my story and talk about the car. And I really appreciate, what you're doing with the site and the coverage, So I think it definitely helps people see what's going on, you know what I mean, in the community, the Mitsu community, and really understanding help with the combos and what you might, want to make your goal set to. So I think this podcast is a really nice touch. What you're doing here, man, with the Mitsubishi specific stuff and, all these people that we go to the annual family reunion that we call the shootout, and you see these people, and sometimes it feels like they're celebrities, but, at the end of the day, we're all just people trying out here to do what we do and have fun, and it's cool to hear everybody talk and hear their stories. So, like I said, I definitely appreciate the opportunity.
Definitely, man. I appreciate you coming on, and can't wait to see an update.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, man. Have a good one. I appreciate you coming on.
Yep. Thanks, Josh.
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening to the MitsuTimes podcast. Check out our Instagram and Facebook for daily updates. Get added to our list by going to MitsuTimes.org and clicking Submit a Slip. Thank you to all of our sponsors.